her son was diagnosed with dyslexia, and she did something about it. So it's all about assistive reading technology. So if we probably won't have her on this show. We're going to have her on the next show. I believe in the queue is Gary Milifetsky, Snoop Wall CEO, who's going to help us out with a few things. Hey, Gary, how you doing?
How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Gary, thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule on such short notice, too, to join us live.
I really appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, so I tell you this much. Every show, we do a weekly show, and we have important guests every week. But I think your topic is so much more. I mean, there's a sense of urgency behind your topic because it's something that people see every day on the news. They turn on the news in the morning, they look at, what's the top story, what's the traffic, and what's the weather. And then you usually hear that type of story about a breach. And people tend to get, for the most part, people tend to get nervous. And people tend to start thinking, oh my goodness, what do I need to do? For me, I'm a legacy IT person, so I've been in IT for almost 20 years, Gary. So, but even I don't know all the steps that need to take. So I'm going to take a step back, and I'm going to put my mic on mute. And I want you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Snoop Wall.
Ted, thank you so much. I started Snoop Wall a few years ago after helping a friend out on his startup, and he was showing me how easy it was to do penetration testing, not only on corporate networks, but on mobile phones. And this was years ago. And I said to him, this was in 2012, and I said, you're telling me you can look at my webcam on my smartphone, and you can eavesdrop on my microphone, and I wouldn't even know it? And he said, hey, this is based on free stuff that's out there. I didn't invent this. So I said, cool, I'll help you get some funding, and you'll do some interesting things for big banks and government. But I've got to go start a company to stop what you're doing. And the point is that you really don't want consumers' phones to be eavesdropped. We have a right to privacy. If you think about Cassidy Wolf, Miss Teen USA 2013, just a year after I figured this stuff out, it was in the news that a cyber predator pedophile was spying on her laptop, smartphone, tablet, all of her devices, took 40,000 photos of her, and she never knew until he got into her account and, sent her a message from her own account saying, if you don't give me more, including nude photos, this was a teenager, right, who became Miss Teen USA. If you don't do that, I'm going to put all these photos online publicly. So our kids have no clue how powerful their computers and smartphones and tablets are. And that's really what I started the company to do, to really help wake up families. And ultimately, I have to monetize it. I have to make money. So I charge banks and big businesses money to secure their networks. But in return, we've made some really cool free tools for consumers, and we have tips for consumers. And we really have to wake people up and shake them out of their days and say, you know what, we've got to educate our kids and ourselves on how to protect our devices.
Gary, I want to suggest this. Here's what I want to suggest. I'm going to assume that I've been compromised. What should I do if I feel like, either not just, my credit card, but let's just say my, I had a similar experience to that, Miss Teen USA or Miss Universe, that if I've been compromised, what are the next natural steps someone that's not IT centric should do?
The first thing you should do if you've been compromised is, contact credit bureaus and your bank, and just be really cautious about any bills that show up. If you can do a security freeze on your credit file, before we get into some of the things I can explain on mobile and smartphone security and Windows and, computers and tablets, which I can give hopefully a good explanation of free things we can do. Let's start with our credit report. The number one thing that's being breached around the country every day is your identity. For what purpose?
Gotcha.
Ted, you know why?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because they want to monetize. They want to steal your identity so they can be you. Yes. They can buy medical equipment under your name. 80 million records breached in Anthem. 80 million. So someone's going to get a bill that says you just had an operation and it was one of the criminals and their fake doctor, right? So these are the things that can happen. So by keeping an eye on our bills and placing a credit freeze on our credit file, then nobody can get new credit without them calling you on your phone number and saying, "Is it really you, Ted? It looks like you're trying to buy a car right now in a state you don't live in."
I got to tell you this much, Gary. I think it was last month or 2 months ago. I swiped my card to buy my monthly railroad pass. The card was declined. And I got a message on my cell phone saying, "Hey, call the bank." And I guess it was just a random check they were doing, or maybe they noticed something, but it was so funny because Chase texted me a message stating, "Hey, did you just try to make this purchase?" It was like maybe an hour or so later, and I was like, "Yes, I did." And they was like, "Okay, you can now make the purchase." And I was kind of shocked. I guess I was happy because they're trying to protect your assets, but they're really trying to protect their assets. Because
exactly.
In fact, it's so high.
Which is better to use, Ted? A debit card or credit card?
I would like to say, I'm going to say credit, because isn't debit tied to your bank account?
Exactly. Now, I used to say to people, "Hey, it's better to have a debit card so you don't get in debt. It's your money." But now, with so much identity theft and fraud, guess who pays or suffers when money's been charged to a card? The bank, not you. If it's your debit card, it's you, and the banks have legally 10 days to investigate and give you your money back. Some banks can take up to 60 days because they'll ask you to go get a notarized letter and to file a police report, and it goes on and on and on. Whereas the credit card companies have to hold the responsibility for themselves resolving the issue.
Gotcha. Hey, I'm going to give you a term that I know, and I know you're really familiar with, but our listeners aren't. When I say the term PII to you, what does that mean to you?
Well, it means to me that somebody might have had your PII when that happened with the bank. Personally identifiable information. So Anthem breach, PII breach, that means that when Anthem lost 80 million records, it was what we call a FULZ, FULZ. When the hackers joke around on the dark web, that's where they sell your identity called the black market of the internet. They say, "Hey man, I got a FULZ on 100,000 people. Want to pay $10 a record?" Anthem records are worth $10 each because it's a full identity: name, address, social security, date of birth, how much you make, what your phone number is, what your email is. A typical credit card breach is only worth $1 a record on the dark web because it's really a credit card number and an expiration date and maybe the 4-digit code, and that can be used to steal credit and harm really the bank, ultimately not you. But sometimes you have to fight to get your identity back.
Hey, Gary, if I said to you, I'm not sure if I've been compromised, but I want to do some spring cleaning on my smartphone. Tell us real briefly, what does that mean to you, or what are some tips you can provide to us?
Well, now is the best time, even though it's the summer, to do a spring cleaning on our smartphone. You started out saying, let's assume we're already compromised. Right on. So, Ted, most people are, and they don't know it. Most kids are, and they don't know it. People install games. One of the games was just discovered to steal Facebook credentials, and they've already had 1 million downloads. So people download games. They download utilities like flashlight apps and Bible apps and other apps, even calculator apps. People download apps, put them on their smartphones, and it's time for a spring cleaning to clean out those apps that we don't use every day and figure out which ones don't belong on our device because they might be stealing our PII.
This is excellent. Gary, we're running out of time, but I definitely we have to schedule another session. I think it's just going to be Gary and Ted talking about these types of topics. I'll get with your PR team because this stuff is so important and people just don't get it. We get it because we understand the technology behind it, but it's just every day. Every day when I'm at work and I go to someone's office and their password is right there on their screen, and I'm like, oh, I just cringe. I cringe.
What do you think
like,
the number one password is? Take the Sony Pictures breach, password or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or they put it on a sticky note in everywhere. We need to change all of our passwords now. We need to clean up the apps we don't use. You know what's really important? Turning off geolocation on our devices, turning off NFC and Bluetooth and Wi-Fi when we're not using them so we can't be electronically pickpocketed. And finally, Ted, our kids don't know when they take a picture and put it up on Instagram or Twitter, it has geotagging built in. It says, here's where that child was. Maybe your house when they're home alone or they're with their friends and they're having a pizza party. Maybe you're out buying the pizza. Here's where they are in the picture. We've got to turn off geotagging. We've got to teach our kids to get smarter.
Oh, my goodness. Gary, you hit it right on the head. You hit it on the head on so many different topics because I guess us as parents, we're not doing our job because we lack the education in regards to the technology that's out there to safeguard our children. But it just
exactly, and I know families where the kids are much better at computers and smartphones than the parents, and kids put too much data out there publicly. They don't think that they just act, and they don't understand that geotagged pictures are private pictures in the public. It's saying here's where I live or here's where I was. Yes. Not good. Yes. Let's wake up and let's teach our kids.
Oh my goodness! Like I said, we're definitely gonna have to get back together on this one because this topic is really too good. Gary, really quickly, we got 90 seconds. Tell us about Snoopball and tell us the best way to get in contact with you via social media, and we definitely want to have you come back.
Thank you so much. What I recommend is if people go to snoopball.com and they click on resources, we have some links right off the homepage. Consumer tools. How about a free flashlight app that's open source and doesn't spy on you like the top flashlight apps on the Play Store or iTunes? Our advisories, our reports, our tips, all for free.
Excellent. When you do come back, I've got to get your take on Apple Pay. I'm just going to leave it out there right now, but I've got to get your take on being able to, take this device and you associate whatever you're going to associate with it, your debit card, your credit card, and swiping it, and the fact that people aren't even putting passwords on their phone, it's driving me crazy, Gary. But hey, I want to give you a one-time round of applause.